Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, hi, hello, I'm Sherrilyn. I am so glad you found me. Today's case, they're all very special, important to honor, spread awareness for. I'm going off script right now. This is how much I need my script in my life, but you know what I mean. Particularly today is very touching to me because my dear friend Gabby Gabelosis on YouTube reached out to me about this case, and she asked for assistance in helping the family get the case out there. And I can't tell you how much that means to me, because having people in my life like Gabby who have helped me so much during my journey on YouTube trust me with a case that is very close to her heart. I could feel that right away. It means a lot. And Gabby was like the first shout out on somebody's channel to go and follow and send love. So I very much appreciate her, and it really touched me. It was a very full circle moment for her to ask for help and for me to cover the case. So thank you, Gabby. And my turn also to say, everybody go and send Gabby some love. She's just so wonderful. So today we are talking about a very, very infuriating case. This is one we need all hands on deck for. The family has felt very unheard and unsupported since 1985. That was a year before I was even born. They're still, you're gonna understand. They're upset and unsupported, and we need to support them. And who better than the Sippindales? The family we are talking about today is the Garcia family, and the last time they saw 15-year-old Tyra Maria Garcia alive was on May 27th, 1985. She left her home in Ventura, California, and seemed to have vanished without a trace until 9 days later, on Friday, June 7th, when her remains were found in an orange orchard, half an hour from her family's home. Gabby actually spoke to Tyra's sister, Tanya, about the case, and based on mine and Gabby's exchange, I felt her heart and her emotion. And when I saw her coverage and I read about the case a little bit, I absolutely understood her frustration firsthand and why she's so passionate about getting answers and needing help. And from past cases, I see how many of you rally and support. So I know that you are going to do the same with this case. And I know that you are going to feel the same way that we do, just pure frustration and upset for this family. Tyra Maria Garcia was born in Ventura County, California on February 12, 1970, to her parents Margaret and Ronald Garcia. She was one of 6 children. Her 4 older siblings were Mitchell, Richard, Teresa, and Tanya, and then they had a younger brother named Ronald. Tyra was described by loved ones as being a very sweet and extremely outgoing girl. One of the family's neighbors, named Rhonda, shared that she was just like a beautiful girl, not only outside but inside as well. And she would go over and brush her daughter's hair. And if you have a little girl or know anything about little girls who are not down to have their hair brushed, especially from their parents or close relatives, you know how huge and helpful that was. So when I heard that, that really, really touched me. Tyra and her family were lifelong residents of Ventura, and they lived with her mother and siblings in an apartment on Hummingbird Street. And this is in the Montalvo neighborhood. Gabby mentioned in her video that the neighborhood was described when it was reported on by local newspaper as being slightly run down, but that it did have kind of a close-knit vibe. And she said that was the nicest way any reporting had described the neighborhood. And it was clear that the intention was to paint the area and the residents as the bottom of the barrel of the community, as if that would justify things that we're going to talk about as we get further into the case. So just remember that. Tanya, Tyra's sister, said to Gabby that it really wasn't like that. Maybe it wasn't, the safest at times, but there were a lot of people that knew each other, looked out for each other, and cared for one another. In 1985, Tyra was a freshman at Buena High School, and those who knew her in school said that she was well liked. Even the assistant principal said that she was a very sweet girl, somebody who obviously went out of their way to acknowledge everybody she ran into, say hello, be polite. And she didn't have any troubles getting along with friends or teachers, but she did have some learning difficulties. Her IQ was a little bit lower than the rest of her peers, and because of that, she had been held back and then was in the special education program. But she was determined and a very hard worker, and she had so many things that she was looking forward to in her life, especially the fact that she was starting a new job very soon as a receptionist. Before this, she was doing babysitting work for people in her area just to earn a little bit of money. And it sounds like she was going to still also do that part-time, like in addition to this new job that she was really excited for. But this was like her focus. She had recently bought herself like a whole new wardrobe, which she was so excited about. And I can just imagine that feeling of excitement, you know, buying your first real job clothes, being so proud of yourself. So that was the headspace that she was in at that time, and her family was just as proud of her. Tyra was very close to her family, particularly her sister Tanya, who was only 18 months older than her. They pretty much grew up like friends, knew each other's friends, and the only time that they were apart was when Tanya had went to Job Corps for 8 months. So when she was gone, Tyra had made her own group of friends, and then when she came back in April of 1985, Tanya got a little bit of a feel for those friends, and since that they were a rougher crowd and didn't really want to spend a lot of her time with them. Something that Tanya had shared with Gabby about this time was that Tyra was also feeling a little bit lost, maybe even kind of testing the waters of rebellion, because she was going through something personal that was hurting. Not only was she hurting, but also her siblings. And that's because their parents had gotten a divorce, and Tyra's father went on to marry another woman, and allegedly this woman did not want his children in the picture at all. So Tyra felt like she had lost her father, even though he was still alive, but he had like chosen, you know, this other woman over his own children. Tanya said, though, they did all the right steps. The family had even gone to counseling and tried to work on those emotions. And it was actually through the counseling that they learned Tyra had been influenced to partake in some pretty heavy drug use with this older crowd that she was hanging out with. But they were under the impression that she was not doing this anymore, and she was upfront and honest about everything. So their belief was that she had stopped doing this. And Tyra was almost honest to a fault. It sounds like if she said something, her family was more inclined to believe her, and we will get into that in a moment. First, let's start with the day of Monday, May 27th, 1985, right after Memorial Day weekend. Tyra spent the day with her family at her sister Teresa's home in Oxnard, which is about 15-minute drive southeast of Ventura. They spent the entire day at her sister's, and her family said that Tyra did keep leaving to go for a walk up to the nearby payphone to make several calls. Some of them were to her ex-boyfriend Joey, who she had just recently broken up with. And Tanya told Gabby that they were kind of just like in that I miss you, I want you back phase of things. It was around 9:30 p.m. that the family arrived back at their home. And when they got home, Tyra made a few other phone calls to some of her friends. And one of them was her best friend at the time, Lori. And she asked Lori if she wanted to go with her to their friend Marlene's house, because she said she wanted to go and talk to Marlene about a upcoming babysitting job that they had for the weekend. Lori was hanging out with her boyfriend that evening, so she said no, and Tyra then asked her sister Tanya if she wanted to go, but Tanya said she had laundry to do. She also had school the next morning, and she also said no. Tanya and Tyra's mom even suggested Tyra just stay home and talk it out with a friend the next day. The next day was a big day, you know. This was the day that she was going to be starting her new job. But Tyra insisted that she was going to be quick. She'd be right back. And since the friend's house was only a few doors down, it didn't seem like that big of a deal. So she left the house. Her family saw her enter her friend's apartment, and that was the last time they ever saw her alive. Tanya did tell Gabby that she had a very strange feeling when she saw Tyra walk out of the house that there was just something deep down inside her that knew she was never going to see her again. And she even said something to her mother, and her mom said, don't think like that. Why are you thinking this? But Gabby made a really good point. She said people, they just have these intuitions. And I've heard of a lot of people, and several times watching true crime, speaking to people myself about these intuitions that they have. And my family, I know that they think that I'm off my rocker because, I'm always like, I don't have a good feeling about this. But I have learned to believe when people say these things. And if you have those feelings, like, just trust and go with it. And I'm sure 90% of the time it's nothing. But, don't talk yourself out of something that you truly feel in your gut, and don't think that you're crazy for thinking this, because I've heard of this so much. And this is exactly what Tanya experienced that night. And she was correct. We don't know what the intention was. Tyra could have possibly intended to be right back. It didn't seem like she planned on leaving for a long time. She didn't bring her jacket with her. She didn't bring her purse. And these were things that she would have always brought if she knew that she was going to be going for like a longer period of time. So whether that was the intention or not, we know that the plan changed. I guess in the back of the apartments where the Garcia lived, there was an alleyway, and it was shared with a strip mall on Barstow Road. And I guess on the far end of this strip mall was a 7-Eleven, or is a 7-Eleven convenience store. There were a couple witnesses who did see Tyra that evening. Unfortunately, though, they didn't recall the exact times, which kind of makes the order of events unsure. We know that at one point in the night, one of the neighbors of the Garcias looked out her back window and saw Tyra sitting in the back alley on the back steps of the 7-Eleven. And for decades, the Garcia family believed that Tyra was sitting in the alley alone, but recently found out that she had been with some of her friends that never spoke up. Again, this is going to be a reoccurring theme. This neighbor remembers asking Tyra if she was okay, asking why she was out so late, and Tyra told her, yeah, everything is okay, and she was just waiting for somebody to pick her up. Then this neighbor sees a light brown or tan lowrider car pull up. They saw Tyra lean into the vehicle, speak to two men who were described as being of Mexican background sitting inside. Tyra turned around, said goodbye to the neighbor, and then got in the car and left with these men. Tyra and these men were also seen by a cashier at the 7-Eleven getting drinks and snacks and then leaving together. And this cashier is the last person on record to see her alive. Unfortunately, there was no working security camera, so there's no footage of them actually going there, just the report on record. Personally, I didn't even know that there were security cameras in the 80s. That makes me sound so like, I don't know, trying to be young, but like really I'm not. But I had to look into it, and I found out that the first like CCTV footage was used in 1949. This is where the timeline gets murky and unsure, because within that same time frame, Tyra was also seen at a party that was held at the Loops Motel. This, I guess, was less than a mile from where the Garcias live. And this party was described as being held across a few rooms. So there was a few rooms that were blocked off, and there was somewhere between 70 to 100 people in attendance. So a lot of people coming and going. Allegedly, Tyra did know quite a few of the people at the party, but it's unknown what she did at the party, if she consumed anything. We don't know. There are sources online that have stated that Tyra was seen at this party with these two men, but Tanya says that she's not 100% sure of that. Since the timeline is unclear, we also don't know if she was at this party before or after she was seen in the alleyway and at the 7-Eleven. My understanding is many believe that the timeline is she went to the party after she was seen at the 7-Eleven, and then that driver brought her to the party, and no one knows if they stayed or just dropped her off. Something that Gabby had mentioned, and I think that it is really important, is that Tyra had snuck out of her house a couple times in the past to go to a party or stay the night at a friend's. And the reason her family knew this is because she just had this like sweet, almost like I said, honest to a fault soul, where she would feel so bad for being dishonest and always phone her mom to tell her where she was so that her mom wouldn't worry. So when she didn't turn up that evening or the next day and she wasn't heard from, her mother knew that something was extremely wrong. Early that next day, Tyra's mom phoned the authorities to report Tyra missing and that she wanted a missing persons file reported, or missing persons report filed. Wow. We've gone through a lot of cases where exactly what happened to the Garcias has happened so much, and it's the department being adamant that Tyra was a runaway and she would be back, in no time. So they were instructed to wait 48 hours before filing this report. This is despite her mom being very insistent in saying, listen, I get it. She has snuck out before, but this is different because she has never run away, made me worry. Let's also not forget she was scheduled to start this new job that day, something she was so excited for. But again, the police were like, nope, she's going to come back. If she doesn't, come back in 2 days. So at this point, the Garcia family had a very good idea, whether they knew it or not, of how things were going to go. And they decided to take things into their own hands that very first day. They went out looking for Tyra, talking to people, and had to do that for 48 hours. And when that 48 hours came up and Tyra was nowhere to be seen, officially a missing persons report was filed. However, this is a big however, even though that report was filed, the police themselves told Tyra's family that they weren't going to be really doing anything on their end because they still believed that she was a runaway and they needed those resources for other emergencies. So these are very crucial days. We have a show now called, The First 48. Not only did they have to wait those first 48 hours and all of that time had passed, now they've officially done what they needed to do, and there's no search conducted, no coverage on the news, in the papers, nothing. Tanya told Gabby that they basically treated the family as wasting their time for even asking for resources to help them. This went on for 9 days when, sadly, the search for Tyra ended on Friday, June 7th, 1985 at 1 p.m. when 2 farmers came across a badly decomposed body dumped over the side of a cliff in an orange orchard. And this was in Moore Park, about a half an hour away from where Tyra lived. The remains were wrapped up in a blanket and had cords believed to be from curtains wrapped around to secure the blanket. And as soon as Tyra's mom heard that there was the discovery of a body, she went to the coroner's office and told them about Tyra. And she was able to describe the clothing that she had last seen her in and the jewelry that she was wearing the night that she left. And the jewelry, which was a necklace with a cross that her mom had bought for her, and a rose ring, and then a few other rings, as well as some rubber bracelets, were what she identified. And that jewelry was brought out, which was recovered on these remains and obviously matched the description. And when her mom saw this absolutely broke her. Even before having DNA confirmation, she knew that the body that was found belonged to her daughter, which eventually was positively identified as being Tyra Maria Garcia. The condition of Tyra's remains are unsettling and very hard to picture, being a 15-year-old girl. Tanya told Gabby that her hair was extremely matted, almost like she had been in an altercation of some sorts and was struggling. And her teeth were also found in her throat. This is something that is not highlighted much in the case summary. And oh my God, just infuriates and also breaks my heart to think of. Unfortunately, based on the condition of the body in terms of decomposition, they were unable to discover what her cause of death was. And at this point, things go from bad to worse. Not only was the investigation botched from the start, but huge amounts of potential evidence had been destroyed, compromised, or lost. Starting with her jewelry. So the day that Margaret identified this jewelry belonging to Tyra, it was just given to her, despite the possibility of there being DNA to identify like a killer or killers. And I'm sure that wouldn't have been something that even crossed her mom's mind at the time, because it's almost like, okay, yeah, this was it. Like, here you go. And that's like a piece of that person. You're not really thinking of that, especially if you've never gone through this before. Obviously, any of us who watch true crime or, like study cases, those are things that you think about just because it's familiar to us. But a family who has nothing to do with, this genre of reality for people, if you've never experienced somebody dying or being murdered, you don't think like, oh, can you hold on to this stuff? Because there might be DNA on it, especially like in the 80s. Anyways, I just had to go on a little tangent there. So I just wanted to make sure that, because as we go forward, in my true crime mind, I was like, oh my God, no, but you don't think about this as a family. Okay, so the jewelry was placed in a baggie, and this was not opened from the family for many years. Unfortunately, when they did decide to finally open the bag and look at the jewelry, they had like delicately cleaned everything to preserve the jewelry. And unfortunately, there's the possibility of any DNA from a killer potentially being on the jewelry. The chances of that now are extremely low. Another frustrating aspect of the case, there's going to be a lot. I'm going to keep going and another thing. So another thing right now is that the police didn't even consider the place that she was found to be a crime scene. So nothing was blocked off, nothing was preserved. On top of that, there was a huge clerical error on her death certificate that might have not even been caught for a long time. And it claimed that her cause of death was suicide and not murder. And this is something that might have not even been noticed had it not been for a local foundation that Tyra's family had reached out to for help. I guess they offered to pay for funeral expenses for families who are in similar situations. And when they saw the cause of death, they had initially declined because they didn't help with suicides. So then the family finds out that this is on there. It's a huge deal. But once again, they have all of these hoops that they need to jump through themselves to get this changed, because a suicide ruling would basically close an investigation. And it's not the family's responsibilities to clean up after other people's mistakes, especially when they're out here also acting as investigators. I cannot believe what this family has gone through, and we're just getting started. Gabby actually said that it was Sharon Tate's mother who helped them get that cause of death changed. Sharon Tate was the movie star who was pregnant and one of the murder victims of the Manson family. My understanding from Gabby's video is that there was a downside to working with this foundation. Again, something that you would not think about in that moment, in that time. In order for them to pay for the burial, Tyra had to be cremated. So we know that you're not going to think about this, especially back then. But today, we have come so far with testing, going back and being able to extract DNA. And unfortunately, now that there is no body, Tyra cannot be exhumed to do any further testing. There could have been a chance if there were things preserved along the way. According to Tanya, though, the Ventura County coroner didn't even try to preserve any potential evidence to find Tyra's killer. There were no nail scrapings done, no testing of her clothing or the blanket or the cord, nothing. There was no kit done. Not even a toxicology test was done. I mean, I guess there can be a number of reasons why you wouldn't go deep into that. In my opinion, I would think that a 15-year-old found in that condition, you would just on your own as the coroner. But generally, if investigators are not emphasizing the importance of this investigation, that kind of sets the precedence of how you're collecting things There is some records that show that investigators had started the process of questioning people. It doesn't sound very extensive though. For example, one of Tyra's ex-boyfriends, not the one that she had recently broke up with, but the one prior, was questioned. He wasn't even questioned down at the station though. He was questioned inside the Garcia's home at their own dining room table. And other than him, only a few other friends were questioned, and that was it. Like her own family was never even questioned. The ones closest to her to tell them about her patterns, her life, potentially if there was anybody, like in their mind that they thought that somebody should be looked at, nothing. So after only 3 days, the Ventura investigators closed Tyra's case. I'm like sitting here like this. Like I feel like I'm going to break my fingers because I'm so upset. From that point forward, actually, from the minute Tyra was missing and her family knew it, they became investigators. But after that, it was like things were kicked into high gear. And I just want to emphasize how wrong that is. I've talked about it before, but no grieving family should ever have to become investigators for their own family's death. You're not given the chance to properly grieve. I've seen it just destroy people, destroy families. They're not doing anything wrong. Like they have every right to fight for justice for their loved ones. And that's exactly what Tyra's family has had to do for almost 40 years. It wasn't until almost at the 40-year mark that they finally felt a glimmer of hope when they started working with podcasters, not authorities. And primarily it was the No Activity podcast. And from that, this case was reopened in 2021. And that's what keeps me in true crime, because there are still a lot of creators who want to help, who want to get in touch with families and do what they can and use their voice and their platform for good. I've said it a lot. There are also those who don't care at all. But, I have nothing but so much respect for creators like Abby who want to get out there, Kendall Ray, podcasts like No Activity Podcasts who have given hope to families who have felt unheard, unsupported, treated like that, like they're the perpetrator. Like they and that all that does is just like re-victimize them. I don't want to say it's unsure, because obviously it's unsure. This is all my opinion, but it's pretty clear. Like it looks like there was a let's save face and open this case back up because of the backlash that was coming from coverage on the podcast. Again, this is my opinion, but it just looks like, okay, like let's reopen it so that it's officially reopened and then people will be quiet. And it wasn't until it reopened in 2021 that investigators even spoke to Tanya. And it's Tanya's experience with her being finally officially spoken to that kind of supports my whole, like, we're just doing this to keep up with appearances thing. Because she said it was very obvious that there was no interest in what she had to say and all of the work that her family had done all of these years. So that basically put them exactly where they've always been. But now her family does have this rise of hope because of the people online that have rallied together to put pressure on the authorities to actually give a shite about Tyra. And that gives the family hope. And like I've said, I'm repeating myself, but it really is so incredible to see how many strangers have taken these families under their wings, fighting for victims that they've never even met. And I'm talking about you guys, not people who are covering it. I'm talking about the listeners and the true supporters who feel so deeply and understand and want to use their voice and spread the message and even just go leave a word of encouragement. It is all of you that are crucial to solving so many of these cases. And when it comes to Tyra's case itself, one of the main things that the family wants answers is about the 2 men that she was last seen with. And it's kind of reinvigorating the case by spreading and sharing and you guys getting involved to see if you or someone you know think they look familiar. You have no idea. I know that it sounds like so overdone, but it's like if you have a tip, even if you think it's like insignificant, you have no idea if that's like case solving. So here's something that's really going to freaking piss you off also. Let's add another one to the list. We should have a tallier, like how many times. You know what? One day I should get one of those like blood pressure monitors or like heart monitors and see just like how worked up I get. Like right now I'm sweating and that's what happens when I get like really angry and worked up and I'm just like clenching. So anyways, okay, right. Pissed off. There were sketches that were done of the driver and the passenger, and the family knew, like, back in the day, there were sketches done because they were given copies of them. And this was something that Tanya had thought was lost amongst all of her mother's things that she was keeping in regards to like the investigation that they were doing for Tyra, because she hadn't seen it for years. So instead of like wasting time to look for it, she reached out to the authorities and asked like about these sketches. And this is when she's told there are no sketches, like that they don't exist, gaslighting her. So once again, she needs to take up even more of her time to prove them wrong. Sure enough, she was able to find one of the two sketches that she knew were done. It was a sketch of the driver. And even though it's just one, it shows that like she knew it existed. She was being gaslit to say that it didn't. And it makes you think like what else? What else is missing or not never existed that has slipped through the cracks? Like it's so messed up. I am going to enter that, or I'm not going to. My incredible editors, they are going to. I love when I saw a couple of you give them shout outs last time that I mentioned them, but they will put the original sketch that was done of the driver of that vehicle here now so that we have it out there and to show that it does exist. The suspect is described as being a male with a darker complexion, possibly Mexican, standing between 5 feet 3 inches tall and 5 feet 4 inches tall, heavy set, dark hair, wearing a white t-shirt and beige khaki pants. This individual had acne scars on his face and today would be about 55 to 65 years old. This individual drove a cream or beige 76 or 80 Monte Carlo or maybe Buick Regal with a tanned interior in clean condition. Gabby provided a digital sketch of what was done of the individual back in 85 and then what he would look like today from normal aging while heavy drinking, and then aging with extensive drug use. Now, the passenger was described as a male, possibly Mexican, early 20s, approximately 180 pounds, and standing between 8 feet, come on, Sherrilyn. They would stand out 5 feet 8 inches tall to 5 feet 9 inches tall. And it is believed that this individual, if still alive, would be in their very late 50s, possibly early 60s. This is not to say that they had anything to do with what happened to Tyra, but they have never come forward. They haven't wanted to clear their name, share potential crucial information that could possibly have led to who did this to Tyra, because it sounds like they were most likely one of the last people, if not the last people, to see Tyra alive. According to people who knew Tyra best, nobody even knew where to start or had a suggestion. They didn't know who these men were. Now, there is speculation that her ex-boyfriend had sent them to pick Tyra up, but allegedly that ex-boyfriend has denied this and doesn't know who they are either. According to Tanya, though, she had phoned to just check in on the case and was nonchalantly told by the Ventura County Sheriff's Office that they knew who the man in the sketch was, which was like complete shock to her because like she had just made the call, and she was told that he lived in the area this entire time. He was recently retired and was recently questioned. And Tanya says, okay, well, what did he say? What did he have to say about my sister and what happened? And the investigator said because this was an active investigation, they couldn't tell her anything. So to this day, they have not told her anything about this man, what was said. And I can't imagine how upset Tanya is, how upset Tyra's family has been all of these years, but especially after that, because I'm livid. I take it personally. It's Tyra's family who has kept any chance of Tyra's case being solved going, and they've just been kept in the dark up until this point and have no other, choice but to feel that things, that maybe those on the case are just like not right for the case. I want to say incompetent. I'm going to say incompetent. Okay. This is my opinion. It's kind of reminded me a little bit of the Crystal Rogers case and how her dad had kept so many notes and files. And after he was murdered, how her mom was just like, I need to hold on to this for dear life, and what that would have felt like to kind of like relinquish some of your investigation and try to trust investigators. And that's like Tyra's mom. She had so many notes on Tyra's case, including a list of names who she knew for certain had gone to the party that night. Tanya said that her mom had given this list to the police back in the 80s, but they were never told what had happened from that point forward. They do not know if anyone was even questioned from the list, or even if the list still exists for new investigators to go in now that it has been reopened. And so if things couldn't get more upsetting, they do. Another thing that Tanya was told by current investigators is that there was never a party that night at the motel. Authorities told Tanya that the quote, Gabby used quote from Tanya, was that it was a quiet night at the hotel. This is something she again knows for a fact was not true. There have been tons of people over the years who knew that there was a party, who had been at the party, and the owners of the motel themselves verified that there had been a party that night and that Tyra was in attendance. So when I use the term incompetent, it's like, well, this is what we have, like these are the facts of your own investigation, what you're saying to family that we have to go on. And the reason I get so upset is because it hurts. It hurts families like the Garcias who are innocent, who have done nothing wrong. On top of being hurt and having a hard time in trusting the investigators, they also are subject to hearing a lot of rumors. One of them that Gabby had shared was that someone said that they were at the party that night and claimed that they saw Tyra and that she had done a hot shot, which is often like heroin that is intentionally laced with a stronger narcotic. Allegedly, she did this. She went into convulsions and died in front of everybody at the party. Now, if this is true, you have to consider the fact that there was almost, what did we say, between 70 and 100 people who were there, saw her die, and then somebody or multiple people took her body away to go and dispose of her. And then of those, 70 to 100 people, not one person has said anything since. So the family does not believe this theory, and I can understand why. It also doesn't explain how her teeth ended up in her throat. Tyra's other sister, so not Tanya, but Teresa, she believes that a serial killer may be the one that is responsible. And this is the biggest theory of the case. And this started when police had publicly stated that they believed whoever did this knew what they were doing and had possibly done it before. Unfortunately, though, it's hard to even try to narrow down that theory because her cause of death has never been determined, and it can't be. So no one knows if it was a drug overdose, like from one of those rumors, or a complete accident, or if it was deliberate and somebody either stabbed her, shot her, or strangled her. Based on the autopsy, it doesn't sound like she was stabbed or shot. Like Gabby said, though, like with the negligence on this case, I loved that term, we really don't know. While I don't believe that the overdose rumor is true, I do believe that there are people at the party who may have known something or have information that could solve the case. And there could be a number of reasons why they haven't come forward. Maybe they don't think that what they know is crucial at all. And again, it could be the information that solves the case, or they could have just possibly been too afraid to speak to anybody then. So with 40 years passing, the pro to that is that there are people who do come forward after a lot of time has passed, and they do the right thing. They're able to give family just like a little bit of peace and hope after a number of years. And they have like, I guess, like more guilt built up. And then that leads to bravery of just being like, here, this is what I know. That being said, it doesn't solve the fact that even if somebody were to come forward, which I hope they do, it's crucial now more than ever, because it's too late for some of Tyra's family to even know about. So Tyra's mother, her father, have passed, and so have 3 of her siblings. So Mitch, Richard, and Ronald are also no longer here. So I can't even imagine of what that would have been like to not know what actually happened to my daughter or sister. Another thing that has been mentioned for maybe somebody holding back is that there could be more to the story. For one, Tyra's best friend, Lori, who she had called to see if she wanted to come with her that evening, and she was with her boyfriend and had turned it down. She mysteriously drowned in front of the same group of friends 2 years after Tyra's death. And Tyra's other ex-boyfriend, so not Joey, but the other one, he went on to be an informant for the sheriff's office and police department in Ventura. So with that information, I guess it kind of opens up the understanding of people being scared, especially if they still are all living in this community and don't know what's going to happen. But I am very hopeful for these. I've mentioned that a lot in the cold cases that we cover, because I feel like the older they are, it's almost like when you don't think that there's like any possibility at all of solving it, that's when you have a lot of people, not a lot, but you have people come forward or evidence be retested and all of the advancements in technology. With Tyra's case specifically, though, the family is very reliant on people's stories and people coming forward because of everything that has been lost. We cannot count on technology at this point. Tanya herself even said to Gabby that since heavily investigating her sister's case and like reinvigorating interest, she has received countless death threats too. So it's not an assumption that people are scared. That being said, though, doing the right thing should overtake fear, because you can also provide information anonymously. I'll get to that in a minute. Let's all get ready before we, go into how we can help. Let's get more upset again, because I told you, just when you think you're not upset enough, I'm going to make you more upset. Multiple foundations have offered to do DNA testing on Tyra's clothing and the blanket and the cord that was wrapped around her. But my understanding is that authorities are preventing that from being done. Gabby spoke with Tanya, and she asked if maybe there was a possibility that blanket or the cord had come from the motel that the party was at that evening. And she was told that it was different. So that's huge, because if that's true, where did the blanket and the cord come from? Was there ever, a call for help from the police to the public? Like, did anybody recognize this blanket from their house that's now missing? We don't know. And with the way that the family is still being treated, it doesn't seem like the investigators really care to find out, nor do they want to release things that could help with the investigation that they've already carried on. It's like, why are you trying to hold on to things that could, that the family and people who want to actually help the family, whether they're doing it for, pro bono, or whether they're raising money for the, DNA testing, the damage has already been done. Like, stop. Tanya is not giving up. Oh my gosh, it just these family members are so freaking strong. I cannot convey that enough. Yeah, sorry, I'm just having an upset moment. I've gone to a rally with a family, and it's very emotional because it just reminds you, like, these family members shouldn't be having to, it should be like a memorial rally, to honor someone's memory, not let's get a rally going because the investigators don't want to help us and we feel like no one cares about our loved one. Tanya held a public rally last year in June 2023. And she told Gabby that during this rally, the authorities had shown up, and not to show up in support and basically be like, yeah, let's drum up some interest. No, they were there to say pretty much like, legally, we can't shut you down, even though, like whether we would want to or not, we can't do that. So pretty much like, we don't want you here. We don't want the rally, but because of like your freedoms, you're allowed to have a rally as long as it's peaceful, even if we don't want you to do that. I can't imagine. And also, if you just needed a little bit more evidence that the Garcia family are just so poorly treated, I almost threw my computer at the wall when I found out that Tanya has received help to put up a billboard for her sister's case, but is unable to receive the permission that she needs for that billboard to be put up anywhere in Ventura. Only Los Angeles, and it's like Ventura is like where she needs people to constantly see it, so that it triggers somebody to be like, you know what, it's time to talk. Like, make this make sense. She's not asking for the authorities to pay for the billboard. She has all of that lined up, and she's being told no. This happened with the Elmquists as well. Tanya also told Gabby that Tyra is not even in the system for the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children, because in order to do that, they need the support from the department, and the department is not willing to do that. I feel it's important to say, Gabby mentioned this too, like the goal of doing these videos is not to point fingers or attack, the department. But Gabby was a lot more like graceful and kind, and I think that she all around is a lot more graceful and kind than I am. Yeah, she was very sweet of saying that. And I don't want to attack anybody, but I do, like, I guess if highlighting the facts is that how it comes out, and obviously my tone is quite saucy and sassy in this video, as is with others that are similar to this. I just can't like fake it. This is how frustrated I am, and this is not my family member. I feel so terribly for these family members who are treated this way. There's nothing that justifies it. I can't ever make sense of it. It's like, you do have to put yourself in these people's situations and imagine something happening to somebody in your life and you want justice for them. This is a 15-year-old girl. Her family has every right to want justice for her. There's nothing that she could have ever done in her life to deserve this. And there's nothing her family has done to find justice for her that is deserving of the way that they have been treated. So while, yes, the intention is not to just, blast authorities on this case, it's like you kind of gotta call it out, because I can't believe they've had to do this by themselves for 40 years. Something that hurts Tanya a lot is that she says that Tyra is not even referred to as a murder victim by the investigators. And I saw a blurb about Tyra on their website, and it just pissed me the F off. What they said was it's their, like a list of their cases, and it says on May 27th, 1985, Tyra was reported as a runaway, and then goes on to say that then, that she was found. That in itself is like, it's just the word phrases, right? Like, Tyra's family was so adamant from the get-go. Like, she was not a runaway. She always checked in. Why? Why try to make someone look bad? It brings me back to the comment that I made at the beginning of the video. And it's my opinion it's because that's the narrative that is trying to be spun to backpedal, to try to justify the lack of urgency from the get-go. Again, that's not accusing somebody. That's just saying, like, this case was botched from the get-go. They did say that she was a runaway to come back in 48 hours. And then what happened, a little over a week later, she was found dead. So, it just, to me, looks like, damage control being done because of those mistakes that were made. And for some reason, they think like reporting her as a runaway or saying that the area was run down and rough justifies that a 15-year-old girl was murdered and discarded like trash, which absolutely doesn't. And it upsets me because like that runaway impression to this day is still pushed. And I'll never understand why. Like, to victim blame a victim? I don't know. It makes me very sick. Okay. That being said, if you have any information regarding Tyra Garcia's case, you are urged to contact the Ventura County investigators at 805-384-4736, or you can call the Ventura County Crime Stoppers tip line. I believe this is anonymous. Please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but pretty sure. This is where we go into the anonymous thing. So you can do that at 1-800-222-TIPS, which is 1-800-222-8477. You can also submit tips through their website at Ventura County Crime Stoppers. Tanya also has started a petition, which Gabby has left in her description. I will also leave it in the description if you want to sign it. Gabby even mentioned in her video, Tanya is not really sure like what the goal of it would be like for the petition, but it's just like pretty much to show authorities that there are a lot of people out there that care about Tyra and they care about her case getting solved and having justice. So for that, what more do you need to do than just to even just sign and show somebody that you heard the story and that you agree. Tyra's family also is hoping to get as much coverage as possible on her case in hopes that it reaches the right audience, the right person watching will come forward with new information, and also just to prove to authorities, like, look at all of these people are talking about Tyra. It's been 38 years. People still care. And Tyra, no matter how much time has passed, deserves justice. So thank you, Gabby, so much for trusting me with Tyra's case. If you are not following Gabby, please do. She's absolutely incredible. She's also going to keep in touch with Tanya and will update us all if there are changes to the case. So let's support the family, pray for answers, and please tag your favorite creators on this case in my video or in Gabby's, both of them. Let them know, like, we need all hands on deck. Mine and Gabby's channel is definitely like smaller fish in a massive ocean. So if we can get some of like your favorite bigger creators to come on board and help out, that is very appreciated. Okay, that is where I will leave you today. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It means the world to me. Those comments mean so much to me too. I loved everybody commenting for the algorithm because we love you. Thank you. I love you so much, and I cannot tell you how much it helps me. Yeah, so please continue doing that. I will see you in the next video. I will miss you terribly. Until then, make sure to love each other, love yourself, and I will see you soon.